Something dark is spreading across Russia. A shadow so vast that even Vladimir Putin can't control it. It isn't a foreign army, a rebellion, or a secret plot. It's something far more dangerous to a man who built his empire on fear and wealth: economic collapse. For more than 20 years, Putin's power has rested on one illusion: that he is unshakable. He survived wars, sanctions, and political enemies by convincing his people and the world that Russia could endure anything. But now, the machine he built is breaking down from within. The war in Ukraine, once meant to make Russia great again, is instead tearing it apart piece by piece, financially, militarily, and morally. When Putin launched his full-scale invasion in 2022, he expected a lightning victory. He imagined Ukrainian soldiers dropping their weapons and Kyiv falling in days. He pictured himself as the man who rebuilt the Russian Empire. Instead, 3.5 years later, he's leading a country that's slowly collapsing under the weight of his own ambition. The economic shadow began forming long before the first tanks rolled into Ukraine. After Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, Putin started preparing for the day Western nations might turn on him completely. He built up foreign reserves, cut foreign debt, and pushed Russian industries to replace Western imports. He strengthened ties with China and India, betting that trade with the East would protect him from the West. It worked for a while. When the world punished Russia for invading Ukraine, the economy wobbled but didn't fall. Sanctions froze assets, blocked trade, and kicked Russian banks out of global systems. Yet, to everyone's surprise, the ruble bounced back, factories stayed open, and oil kept flowing. China and India bought record amounts of Russian fuel, giving Putin the lifeline he needed. He laughed off the sanctions and called them a failure. "The economic blitzkrieg has failed," he bragged. For a time, it looked like he might be right, but Putin never planned for a war that would last years. He built an economy to withstand a short storm, not an endless winter. Every month of fighting drains billions from Russia's budget. Every missile fired, every tank built, every soldier paid eats deeper into the reserves that were supposed to last decades. Now, those reserves are almost gone, and the cracks are turning into canyons. Russia's economy, once praised for its resilience, is showing signs of deep decay. The country's GDP growth, which was 4.3% in 2024, has fallen to barely 1% in 2025, far below the 2% minimum economists say is needed just to stay afloat. Inflation is climbing again, eating away at what's left of the middle class. Basic goods, bread, sugar, fuel, have doubled in price since the war began. Car sales are expected to drop by a quarter this year. Ordinary families are struggling while the elite pretend everything is fine. The government's budget deficit tells the real story. In just 8 months of 2025, Russia's deficit ballooned to nearly 2% of the entire economy, closing in on 2.6% by year's end. That's dangerous for a country cut off from international borrowing. With no access to global credit, Kremlin has only 3 options left: print money, raise taxes, or drain its reserves. It's doing all 3, and none are working. The Kremlin's printing presses are running day and night, flooding the economy with rubles and driving prices higher. Interest rates have spiked so high that small businesses can't get loans. The government has even imposed limits on how people can move money out of the country, proof of just how desperate things have become. The heart of Russia's financial empire and its oil and gas industry is in crisis too. Western sanctions and falling demand have cut tax revenues by almost 20% in a single year. The European Union, once Russia's biggest energy customer, is moving away from Russian fuel entirely. China and India buy more than ever, but at bargain prices, forcing Russia to sell oil for as much as 35% less than market value. Worse still, Ukraine's drone strikes have turned Russian oil infrastructure into a war zone. Refineries, pipelines, and fuel depots are going up in flames week after week. In 2025 alone, Ukraine destroyed nearly a fifth of Russia's refining capacity. The result? Fuel shortages, empty gas stations, and skyrocketing prices across the country. Every refinery that burns is another hole punched through the heart of Putin's war machine. The damage isn't just economic, it's social. Putin's once loyal citizens are starting to lose patience. The promise of stability that kept him popular for 2 decades has evaporated. In recent polls, 2/3 of Russians said they prefer peace negotiations over continuing the war. They're tired of funerals, shortages, and lies. But Putin can't stop. If he ends the war, he admits defeat. If he continues, the economy collapses faster. He's trapped in his own design, a dictator cornered by his obsession with power. Even Russia's elites are feeling the pain. Oligarchs who once lived like kings are watching their wealth vanish, their assets are frozen, their yachts seized, their foreign accounts closed, and now Putin is turning on them too. He's proposing higher taxes on the rich, on luxury goods, big incomes, and corporate profits. He calls it patriotic duty. In truth, it's desperation. These decisions reveal two things. First, the Kremlin's money is running out. Second, Putin still refuses to quit. He's cutting into his own support base to keep the war alive, gambling that fear and control will hold the country together. But fear doesn't pay the bills, and propaganda doesn't fill empty shelves. Across Russia, cracks are spreading everywhere. Skilled workers are fleeing abroad. Labor shortages are crippling industries. Sanctions have cut off access to advanced technology, choking manufacturing and defense production. The ruble is sinking again, and more businesses are closing each month. Even the capital, once insulated from hardship, is feeling the chill. Putin's empire, once built on strength and pride, now survives on illusion. He still controls the TV networks, the police, and the narrative. But no amount of speeches can hide the truth. The war is killing Russia from the inside out. The longer it drags on, the darker the shadow grows. What began as a show of power has become a slow-motion collapse. Putin once claimed he would rebuild a mighty Russia. Instead, he's presiding over a shrinking, exhausted nation, one where money is scarce, hope is fading, and silence is the only form of protest left. He can raise taxes, silence critics, and pretend everything is under control, but the truth is catching up to him. He can't print food, he can't buy loyalty forever, and he can't hide the fact that the war he started is one he can't win. The shadow that has fallen over Russia didn't come from the West or from Ukraine. It came from within, from corruption, greed, and pride. Putin may cling to power a little longer, but control is slipping through his fingers. And when the money finally runs out, so will his reign. Because no matter how deep the darkness grows, even shadows can't hide a collapsing empire forever.